Hi and welcome to the Unquendor Guitars workshop. My name is Daniel and this is the third episode for my entry into the Great Guitar Build-Off 2021. And in this episode I'm going to make the guitar body. The body shape I'm going for is an Unquendor Guitars original. It's the Nessa model and I'm going to use a nice piece of Alder for the main body. And the top is going to be this beautiful piece of Ziricote, and the first thing I need to do is book match it. So I'm taking out my shooting board and my number 7 plane, and I make sure the two halves join seamlessly together. And I try to make the whole book match as symmetrical as possible. And to stop the two halves from sliding during glue up, I tape the two pieces together, and this also lets me check the seam in between the two halves. And then I apply some glue and clamp the two pieces together to get a nice book match. While the glue for the top is drying, I can start working on the main body, and I'm going to use this lovely piece of Alder. And I think it will look very classy to have the dark and black of the Ziricote on the top and have a nice and plain light wood type as the main body, especially with my Nessa model where the top is going to be inlaid into the guitar body and you have the main body wood type as a false binding around the top. So yeah, hopefully the contrast will make this a very classy looking guitar. So first I have to draw in, of course, the center line. And trace the outline of the guitar body using the template. And of course cut everything out using the bandsaw. And in my opinion, using a router table is by far the most accurate and fastest way to clean the outside of the guitar body. And of course the Infinity Tools Mega Flush Trim bits are excellent to do so. And with the same template I can also start routing the control cavity. And you can see me using an offcut from the guitar body and an offcut from making the template to support my router when I need to route very close to the edge and prevent the router from tilting. The first thing I've routed was the little recess for the control cavity cover plate. And using a bigger diameter copy ring and the edge I just created as a guide, I start routing the outline for the control cavity. And a drill press and a Forstner bit makes quick work of removing all the excess material from the control cavity. I've got the outline of my body ready and I've routed the control cavity, including the little recess for the cover plate. And now it's time for the challenging bit of my build and my main design feature. It's the inlaid top, and I'm going to route the cavity for it. I did some preparation to my router table. I added 2 guide rails. And I'm going to use a special template I made. It's a 2-part template. One side is the exact outline of the body, and on the other side it's slightly smaller, just 1.5 millimeters smaller than the overall outline of the guitar body. And this allows me to place my template over my body, a bit like a jigsaw piece. And it's a very tight fit, and it holds my body in place. And now I can use the top side as a template to route the cavity, and I can use a router sled that rides along mostly on the template itself, and the rails are only here to prevent the router from tipping off the ends. So I've got my router set up with a copy ring or a guide bush and a small little router bit, and now I can route the cavity. And just to be sure, I use the template for the top of this guitar and some spaces to draw in the line for the cavity, and then use my router to do an additional check if everything is lined out correctly. I start by routing the entire outline for the cavity to the correct depth. And once I'm at the correct depth, I start removing all the material in the center of the cavity. And then I do a final pass along the outline of the cavity just to make sure it's nice and clean. And then I use some scrapers and some sandpaper to make sure everything is nice and flat on the inside of the cavity. And this is a pretty important step in the whole process of inlaying the top, because yeah, once you press in the top, there's no going back to fix it. I had too much tear out when I tried to use a plane to get the top nice and flat, so I had to use a big belt sander and some scrapers, and it got real dusty, as you can see. So now with the top prepared, I can take my template and figure out which section to use on the guitar, and hopefully I have enough to also make a control cavity cover plate and a headstock veneer from the same piece of wood. This top has some defects. So let's try and avoid them. Well, this isn't too bad. Now it's pretty straightforward, just cut out the top using the bandsaw and then use the router table to finalize the outline. And now it's time for the most difficult, perhaps, and at least the most stressful part of this entire build, and that's gluing in the top. So let's hope everything fits together. Of course, first I have to apply a lot of glue to the inside of the cavity, and this is always a bit of a stressful moment. I only have one chance to get this right. As soon as I start pressing in at the top, there's no going back, it's do or die. Yeah, it has to be a very tight fit, because I want a seamless joint between the existing bodywood and the top without having to do any filling of possible gaps. I think you can now understand why I said there's no going back. It would be impossible to get the top out. I even have to use a big clamp to press it all the way in. It's such a tight fit. And just to make sure the top is all the way in, I add a couple of more clamps. To be honest, I could really use one of those old-fashioned bookbinder presses, but unfortunately I haven't been able to find one yet. Yeah, a bookbinder's press would help. Maybe I have to make one myself one day. After making sure the top of the guitar is dead flat, especially the areas where the bridge and the pickups are going to be, it's time to create the neck pocket. So first I'm going to align the neck with the center line of the guitar body. figure out the depth of the neck pocket and maybe adjust the heel of the neck to get the correct string height where the bridge is going to be. And then of course, once the neck is in, I can figure out the scale length and do the placement of the bridge and the pickups and do all the drilling and routing for those. I start by clamping the neck to the guitar body, and I add 2 aluminum profiles to the sides of the neck that help me to align the neck. And I keep adjusting the neck until the center line of the neck touches the center line of the guitar body and the 2 aluminum profiles are spaced equally from the center line on the body. And as soon as I'm happy with the alignment of the neck, I use a couple of pieces of multiply to make a temporary routing template using masking tape and superglue. And again use the pillar drill to remove most of the extra material from the neck pocket. For all the cavities in the guitar body, you basically use the same technique. You make or you take a template, use the pillar drill to remove most of the axes, and then use a handheld router to finalize and to clean up the shape. Nonetheless, I was very happy with this result. Yeah, I've got a perfect fitting neck joint, and now I have to tweak either the depth of the neck pocket or the heel of the neck to get to the correct string height for the bridge I'm going to use. And here's no edit or no YouTube trickery. This is what actually happened. Well, it's perfect already. And I couldn't believe it was first time right, so I had to do a double and a triple check just to make sure. Perfect. Now with the neck temporarily installed, I could check the alignment of the neck with the center line of the body. Of course, mark the scale length and start placing the bridge. And when I know where to mount the bridge, I use my pillar drill to drill the mounting holes for the bridge as accurately as I can. And now it's time to mark the holes for the string through ferrules. So I mount the bridge to the guitar body and use a very tight fitting drill bit to mark these holes. And I use my drill press or pillar drill to drill these holes as accurate as I can. Yeah, and once again the clamp that's added to this drill press is very useful. I've drilled the outermost holes all the way through, and now I can use 2 drill bits to fix the bridge temporarily in place using those 2 holes. And then use another drill bit to mark the position of the remaining 4 holes. The other 4 holes I've drilled only halfway through, so now I can drill the rest from the back of the guitar, making sure it's all nicely aligned. And I use a stepper drill to create a recess for the string ferrule. And with having less than a millimeter of play in between the string ferrules, I'm pretty pleased with this end result. Figuring out where the pickups need to go is pretty straightforward. I use my pickup rings to determine the center of the pickup and then use my protractor to draw in a line perpendicular to the center line on the guitar body. And I can use that line to accurately place the template. And of course use the pillar drill and the router to make the pickup cavity. I'm not known for doing elaborate carvings on my guitar bodies. I like to keep them as clean and tight, but as perfect as I can get them. So I'm going to make a nice bevel or chamfer around the edge of the guitar. Make sure I have a comfortable access to the higher frets while playing this guitar. and of course do a belly carve on the back, and later on I'm going to blend in this edge with the heel of the neck. The first thing I mark is the center of the guitar, which I want to keep as flat as possible, where the bridge and the pickups are going to be, and then draw in a rough outline for my carve. And then take out my collection of rasps and files, in this case an Iwasaki carver's file, and start carving. And due to the inlaid top, as long as I don't carve all the way through the thickness of the top, the false binding around the edge of the guitar stays at the consistent width. And on the back I can create a nice belly carve. And once I'm done carving, it's time to fine sand the entire body. After carving the chamfer or the bevel at the front and the belly carve at the back of the guitar, I did some fine sanding, mostly off camera, and now I have a almost completed body. Of course I still need to drill some holes for the control knobs and the input jack, and I have to make a control cavity cover plate, but unfortunately that will be in the next episode. Yeah, like always, if you liked this video, let me know by leaving a like, and if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, let me know in the comment section down below. And if you're new to my channel and you liked what you've seen, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you get notified when I upload something new and you don't have to miss out on any of my future content. Yeah, like I said, next week will be control knobs, drilling the holes for the control knobs, input jack, and hopefully glue in the neck, so we finally have a guitar to show for. So yeah, keep an eye out for that one. I hope to see you there, but until then, have a nice week.